everybody. Welcome to the Mile High Club podcast. I am Brian Shapiro. Thank you so much for joining us. It's not every day you get a chance to speak to a self-made, very successful businessman who's made millions of dollars. But the interesting story about Ramy El-Batrawi is the fact that he's had so many ups and downs in his life. And what he's experienced in his life, he's put in this very special book, Can You Really Think and Grow Rich? Thank you so much for being here. How are you?
Thank you. Yeah, real good. Real good. How are you?
Doing good. You found a book. You read a book that was very inspirational to you.
Yeah, I was 12 years old and started reading the book, and a lot of things started resonating to me, and I read it over and over again, and those principles just seemed like if I was able to follow all this, and the author, which Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, promised you to achieve all kinds of successes, and I was young enough and dumb enough to believe everything it said. So I just followed those principles. I read it, and one of the principles it had in that book is don't procrastinate. So in my mind, I said, well, that's what I said. You got to start right away. And so I just decided one day just to pack up and leave and just go after my dreams.
In your late teenage years, you're homeless. Since you were 12, you're living in a car at one point, correct?
When I left home, I was in Montreal at the time. And I just hitchhiked to Florida. I mean, I didn't know where I was going, but
with no money.
No money. I just had the book. That's all I needed. I ended up in Tampa, Florida, and I was homeless. And I was sleeping under underpasses and just walked around. I used to take cleaned up in the gas station bathrooms, and I was that way for about 5 years. But I started talking to everybody. I was never depressed or anything. I was just trying to find what was the thing I needed to do, what was the business I needed to start building the fortune I wanted to build. And then I finally came across an idea, and one of the principles I talk, one of my own keys that I put in the book is the way you really achieve success is you find the need and fill it. So I was just $1 million by the age of 17. So.
Well, the book, by the way, Can You Really Think and Grow Rich? The author is Ramy El-Batrawi, joining us right now. All right, so Ramy, this book is obviously 48 years in the making, right? What I mean by that is he basically lived his life for the last 48 years, and he put everything that he's been through in his life and his success, the trials and tribulations, the thought processes, all in this book. All right, so you're in your mid-20s. Let's get back to that. You're worth about $50 million now. Right. You make $1 million at the age of 17. Right. What do you do at that point in your life, in your mid-20s?
I thought I achieved my goals, and I had the biggest house in Tampa. I had the best sports car. I was really living it up. And then one day I was watching television, and there was a 1 hour special. They never did a 1 hour special of Lifestyles Rich and Famous, and it was my favorite show. And I was watching it, and it was about a man called Adnan Khashoggi. He was the richest man in the world. He was traveling the world, had 35 homes, did billion-dollar deals around the world. And I realized that, this is who I wanted to be, not where I was at. And I stopped short of really the ultimate goal. And again, I decided, that's the goal I wanted, and what I had was nothing, and you're limited by what you think that you want to have. The only limitations you have is the limits you put on yourself. So I went and sold everything I had. It was a fire sale. I sold it for a quarter of what it was worth, but I didn't care because I knew what I needed to do was to find Adnan Khashoggi and work with him.
So at your age, in your mid-20s, how are you able to even contact this man, let alone have interactions with him and eventually do business with him?
I mean, it took me 2 years to find somebody who just knew him. I mean, and I spent a lot of money trying to do it. And when I finally met that one person, then I got to more and more people that knew him from that one person until he heard my name for a while. And then 6 months after that, I finally got to meet him. It took me another 2 years after that to finally convince him of following him around the world, of talking to him. But again, it's persistent. It's part of Napoleon Hill's biggest principle is to never, ever give up. And I just didn't give up until he finally said yes. And there's always a yes behind every no. And I ended up working with him almost 8 years.
So obviously we've talked a lot about the book that you read when you were 12 years old, Think and Grow Rich. But I was actually surprised to find out that they actually endorsed your book, which is incredible. So what we did is we went out to Wise, Virginia, and we spoke to the CEO of the Napoleon Hill Foundation, Don Green. Here's what he had to say.
Well, he said someone will come along and even maybe improve his philosophy. But I think I think it would feel the same way to me is sure somebody has done something. I use a quote in one of my books from Henry David Thoreau. the reason he didn't sit down to write a book, he hadn't stood up and lived. Now, Ramy could have wrote that book before he'd ever done anything. But as far as I'm concerned, it will make him a fraud. He said all this stuff, and maybe I'm going to intend to do it or get around to it, or someday I'm going to do this. No, I'm not interested in that. It didn't work. What's your story? How did it turn out? You know, sit down and write something other when you've never done nothing would be like me trying to teach you how to play golf and I've never been on a course. You want to learn from somebody who's done something. Maybe if you hook up with a Tiger Woods or someone similar to that you can see their track record. If you want to become a good golfer, you want to get with someone who shows that they can do it. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, I think you're a fraud.
You need to be persistent, and you talk about that a lot in your book.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of things in the book. I mean, Think and Grow Rich is an amazing book, and everybody has to read Think and Grow Rich. And I just took it a step further out of my 48 years of experience, and there's another 28 keys that I added to it that I've learned that went beyond of what I learned in Think and Grow Rich. But yeah, persistence, and also never thinking that anything is bad or good, that any failure is always just temporary. And one of the things that was in Think and Grow Rich was through every adversity is a seed of equal or greater benefit. So I saw it every time. Anytime something went wrong or went broke again, I just saw that I knew there was other opportunities out there that I could grasp and build from. So every time that I did go broke, I always came back bigger and stronger. So it's one of the things I kind of point out.
It's an incredible book. Can you really think and grow rich? Ramy El-Batrawi is joining us right now in studio. There's an image in this book where you're holding $21 in your hand. And it's very profound because that's all you had to your name. You literally have nothing once again. This has happened several other times in your life. You've always been able to bounce back. So I would imagine the people that were close to you said, he's going to make it. He's going to get through this. But how? How did you?
Right. Actually, most people didn't believe I was going to make it back. There's only maybe one or two people that thought maybe I had a chance because they knew me well. But most people, gave up on me. And the reason why there is that picture in that book is because actually I took that picture when I was in the streets barefooted with that $21 because I wanted to document it because I was going to prove that I can come back. That there's no way that wasn't going to come back. And that picture of actually me dying because the doctor gave me way too much medication when I was going through the stress of fighting the government. Somebody took that picture and I put that picture in there. And I documented a lot of things along the way, and I waited to write this book because I knew where I was going to be at. And I made a goal from that point that within 5 years I was going to get everything back I had and more. And that's why I wanted to document it. And I was able to, in my mind, see where I was going to be at in 5 years. And I said, in 5 years, I was going to rebuild everything, get my plane back, my house, and achieve everything that I ever wanted again and be back to the level I was at. And I did.
48 years in the making, he wrote this book. Right? It doesn't matter whether you're 12 years old or 80 years old. This book can help you.
I want people to read this book to understand because there's a lot of people out there that feel life is hopeless or think of very limited thoughts or not doing very well, and they'll use most of the excuses that I have put in the book or think Grush put in the book, and I want to prove to them, and they should prove to themselves that they can do anything they want, that they really want to. I mean, it's really, life is basically what you make out of it. You could be a victim or you could be a master of your destiny and get anything you want. And that's what I try to impart with this book. And I give you the keys and I show you the principles I use from Think and Grow Rich to achieve those successes. And by giving you my example of how I did it and what principles I use, anybody could use it in their lives after that. And if they apply the same principles and use the same keys, and they really believe in themselves, they can achieve whatever they want.
Did a little bit of research on you. I did a lot of research on you, and I had an opportunity to speak to some of the people in your life that know you best. Friends, people that have been with you for decades, that have seen the ups and downs, to try to figure out if some of the things that you've said are really true. Here's what they had to say. John, thank you so much for being here. How are you?
Happy to be here.
So I don't think people realize this, but Ramy was a big part of your book in a sense that he didn't write the book, but he actually collaborated with you in pushing the book and getting the book out there. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
The book changes lives, but you've got to reach people and let them know. already was #1 best-selling book in the country. But he took it to 6 years #1 bestseller in the country. The biggest bestseller in the whole decade was Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus.
I think it's fair to say that he literally showed you that, yes, you can think and grow rich. And partially he did that with pushing your book out there.
You know, when I read the book, I wrote the foreword to the book. And the first thing I said, this is a page turner. It's such an easy book to read. You get through it so fast. Successful people understand that unsuccessful people don't understand. It's a journey. And what's great about the book, Think and Grow Rich, a classic, is that Ramy took that at 12 years old, changed his life, created wealth, planes, abundance, fabulous wealth, and love. What is his beautiful wife, Courtney? Unbelievably beautiful.
You know what it's like to have one of the most successful books of all time, at least in my generation, 50 million copies sold. When you read this book, I would imagine you believe that this book deserves to be right there with it. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. You know, what people need is a simple guide, not too complex, an easy read, a story. Think and Grow Rich had a lot of great ideas, but Ramy gives them a life story of what he went through to achieve, how he used these tools to rise above. And I know people that have followed and worked with him who didn't have much money and become millionaires now because of their affiliation with him. So this is real for people. You have to see the possibility.
John Gray, your book is obviously iconic, but hearing that from you, talking about this book, I think goes a very, very long way. Get your hands on this book. John, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your time.
I think this book, Can You Really Think and Grow Rich? Of course, you know he answers it. The book would never been published if he didn't answer that question. Of course you can, and he's telling you not only how he did it, but how you can do it by doing certain things. And if he is one word, it's action. He didn't just read that and agree about it.
The guy I'm sitting next to right now, his name is George Newhouse, and George met Ramy way back in 2001, and they had a big battle that they won, and that was a battle against the government. So that's why George is joining us right now. George, thanks for being here. How are you doing?
It's a pleasure.
So, George, take me back to 2001. The first time you met Ramy, the first time you heard about his situation.
I met Ramy in connection with a relentless pursuit of Ramy and some of his business colleagues by the U.S. Attorney's Office, which is the Department of Justice, the Securities and Exchange Commission. It is hard to describe what it feels like to have the United States government after you. It is a terrible feeling, and Ramy, even in the early days, was solid as a rock. He said, I didn't do this, and I'd like a defense, and that's what we provided him.
Fair to say at that point, Ramy was a target for the government to go after. So my question is, why, and how were you guys able to win?
Well, why were they after Ramy? It's hard to say. He was, even then, very successful. He'd started a company called Genesis Intermedia. They were doing very well. And we think the government was pursuing him because of his ethnicity, which is wrong.
Talk to me a little bit about the man himself. You've known him for a couple decades now, and why people should get their hands on this book and read it.
Said so after 7 years of being pursued relentlessly by the federal government, and he gets a letter saying you're not going to be prosecuted, most people would be angry. They would be bitter. They would be upset, and the negativism would overwhelm. But this is a man with a positive spirit. He was never angry. He was never bitter. He was relieved. I almost got Ramy to drink some champagne with me that night. It didn't happen. But Ramy took that positive spirit, which he talks about in the book, the never quit, and he channeled it into a positive vein. And that's what led him to the next business, to the next success. He didn't let the negativism, which was, as we all know after 9/11, that was gripping the country as well. So it was all around us. The kind of the racism, the prejudice against people of color, which Ramy is. He shucked all that off, and he was always on to the next battle, to the next challenge in a positive manner. And that's what you see in the book. And that's why the man is the success that he is today.
Well, George Newhouse, thank you so much for joining us. You're obviously an extremely successful attorney. You've been doing this for a long time, and I'm sure Ramy would agree. You are very talented at what you do. Thank you for sharing your story and the trials and tribulations of what Ramy had to go through and the experience of that. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure to be on. Thank you.
It's proof that the material in Think and Grow Rich does work, and it's applicable today as it was in 1937. If you do certain things and you have persistence and have a belief that you can accomplish it, you're going to surprise yourself. Your wildest dreams can come true.
The book is Can You Really Think and Grow Rich? An unbelievable inspirational book. And the man we have with us in studio right now, also an inspiration. Not only did he play 11 wonderful seasons in the NFL, he won a Super Bowl with the Chicago Bears. Pretty good acting career as well, and he represented his country in the Olympics. Willie Gault joining us right now in studio. Willie, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
All right, so Willie, you've known Ramy for somewhere around 20 years. That's a very, very long time. You've seen the ups and downs that Ramy has gone through in his life, but you've also seen the principles that he's applied in this book in his own life to make it to where he is today. Can you talk a little bit about that, the friendship you've had with him around 2 decades, the ups and downs, and how he's applied those same principles that he's trying to share with everybody else in this book?
Right, yeah. The one thing I really, really respect about Ramy is that he never gives up. I mean, he never quits. He doesn't mind asking for anything that he needs and wants. That's qualities that very few people have. When I first met Ramy, he was somewhat on top. I mean, so he built a business. He bought 2 airlines and a restaurant chain of 123 restaurants. He was on the top. And then he lost it all. And he went through a period where he really died. And I was there at the hospital. I mean, he flatlined. And he died. And when he came through, he really didn't know where he was or what had happened. And then he was homeless again. I mean, think about it. He was homeless at 12 to 13 or 14. Then he built up relationship, built a business through just seeing people on the street and saying, wow, those people are doing keys. Let me open up a key shop. Oh, wow, I see these vans. We got to sell these vans. So he created disruptive industries before Uber, you know what I'm saying? So he was doing the things that people needed to do. Then he saw a show called The Lifestyle of the Rich and Famous with Robin Leach, and he saw the richest man in the world. And he said to himself, I'm going to work with that guy. Think about it. You're 12 years old. You went somewhere. You got some money, and then you saw a show with the richest man in the world that everybody wants to work with. And you said to yourself, I'm going to work with that guy. He sells everything to pursue this guy. Okay, when he finally gets to him, the guy says, get out of here. I don't know who you are. And he doesn't give up. I mean, a normal person would say, okay, I guess I didn't do it. But he figured out a way that shows you that you can do anything you want if you really apply it. And so he did that. And then, of course, he wound up working with Adnan Khashoggi, who was the richest man in the world at the time. And they went around the world doing business deals and bought this big jet, and and then 9/11 hit, and they lost it all, and he became, again, broke, died, came back alive. And so it shows you that no matter how low you are or how someone kicks you, you can always get up if you really apply the principles and understand how to do it, and never give up, and never accept no as an answer, because you don't have to. There's never a no unless you accept it. You are in control of your own destiny. What he's done is really incredible, and I really respect it a great deal. I have nothing but respect for him for what he's accomplished and how he's done it. And the say no attitude, to never give up attitude, is something that's like a champion. It's like a Muhammad Ali, like a Tiger Woods, it's like a Michael Jordan. They're all the same. It's like never give up. You always want to win. He wants to win no matter what it costs. He's going to make sure it happens. That's the attitude that you have to win, and that's what his attitude is, and that's what he teaches in this book. Can you really think and grow rich? That's what it is. He really can. He really did. He really does.
The whole recipe how to be successful in your life, it's in here. It says this is gold, and it's whoever. Just order it, because it's amazing. That's the really recipe how to get to the place where you want to be.
It's a really good blueprint for me, just the average Joe. I mean, I'm a 2.3 from UNLV. I'm not the brainiac like Mr. Gray that you had on here and Ramy and everything, you know. But just for the average person, for me, when I read it, I could really relate to the stories. It was really simple, easy read. I'm not a big reader, to be honest. And so that's what I like. It was just a blueprint to, man, just follow this. And, you know, even though I don't know if this is true, but the book is like, if I can do it, you can do it.
If you feel your life is not where you want it to be at, right? You know, you got to pick up the book. If you want to change where you're at, you got to pick up the book. You know, it's just a book. It costs you very little to actually change your life, and you should be a different person from the time you start the book and you end the book.
Ramy's involved in a lot of different business ventures, obviously those that are extremely successful. One of them is a hit show that is right here in Las Vegas. Wasn't formed in Las Vegas originally. The show is called 27, and the concept of it is absolutely incredible. These unbelievable musicians who sadly we lost at the very young age of 27. Eric Himmel joining us right now. Eric, thank you so much for being here. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Brian.
It strikes me, Eric, that Ramy is a guy, he doesn't ever use the term indecision making, or he doesn't like that term because he's not an indecisive guy. He's very, very decisive in his decision making. Can you talk about that? Because that's mentioned in this book about you have to be decisive with what your decisions are in life, and that applies to this show 27, right? And partly the success of it.
Absolutely. You know, when Ramy approached me with the idea, and he said, "This is when I want to do the show." He said, "We want to do it March 10th." I go, "Okay." Absolutely.
How does his book, Can You Really Think and Grow Rich, just some examples correlating to your experience with him and the show 27?
The world was shut down, and Ramy's talking about when we're launching a show in Vegas, and Vegas is not even open. You know, it's really putting your mind in seeing that vision and seeing where it's going to go and seeing that it's going to go to this city and that city and the expansion. I mean, seeing it all before it happens, you really do believe it. You really do.
Check out the website, 27show.com. It's one of the best live shows I've ever seen in Las Vegas. And I see a lot of shows, and you could actually see Ramy's vision live. That's really what we're seeing here. Great musicians. It's a phenomenal show, but they're going to be on tour pretty soon as well. Please check out this show. I promise you, you will love it. 27show.com. Check them out. You talk in this book, of course, about how you built some of these special companies, and you're building several of them right now, as you talk in depth a little bit about in this book. Can you talk to us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, one of the companies is a show we launch is through Extraordinary Life Entertainment, and we launched a show 27, which was really hard to get a residency in Vegas, and it's playing in Vegas, and then soon in San Francisco, and soon across the world. And the other one I was showing what I recently launched was Even Mobility. It's going to be a huge company. I mean, it's putting Teslas in all these apartment buildings and hotels for people to use at any time with just an app, and it's just growing by leaps and bounds. We'll have 20,000 cars in the next couple of years. That company alone is going to be worth a few $1 billion. And we're working a ton of other projects, but I just kind of wanted to show, like in this book, I show the ups and downs, and you go through a whole journey, and you'll see the pictures of when I was down, but I show the things when I was up. I wanted to show proof. And that's why there's pictures of my plane or the pictures of the companies I launch, is because I knew what I was going to achieve, and people want proof today. You know, say, okay, great, you could write a book and inspire and stuff like that, but did you do it yourself? I wanted to show that I did do it myself, and other people could do it too.
Well, I think it's a great example, not someone who's just read the book and understands the book, but someone shows us it works and actually developed the qualities of what he was trying to convey to people. And he got it at an early age, and he kept at it. He kept going back and reading it.
Napoleon Hill was hopeful that somebody else would come along and maybe add to what Napoleon did in this book. Do you feel like, number one, Ramy was able to accomplish that? And number two, do you feel like Napoleon Hill would agree with that as well?
Oh yeah, I mean because Ramy had the benefit of what Hill wrote about. A lot of Hill's was trial and error. He doesn't have to make the same mistakes that he did. And of course, you're going to make some of them if you try and look at them as lessons. Yeah, I mean, he said that at this is not the only book that you need to read to Think and Grow Rich, because you read other stories that people have actually took the material and done something with it and show that it works. If Hill wrote that book and there's nobody, everybody's read Think and Grow Rich, but you can't think of nobody that's actually done what it says and showed it work is, evidently it would have been a waste of time, to write something that tells something that work and there's nobody to put it in place. So if nobody uses it to demonstrate that it works, and that's the main thing, is saying, yeah, I did this, and this is what I did, and this is how I did it. So that's the reason it's the importance of the material of someone else come along and said, yeah, I read Think and Grow Rich. I learned what to do with it, and I've done it. And you don't call it bragging, it's just a fact. It's just a fact. And plus, you're in a position to make the difference in positive influence in so many other people's lives, in which most people are not.
So, Ramy, saying you're a busy guy would be an understatement. Tell everybody why you decided to write this book.
I wanted to write this book for a long time because I really wanted to inspire people to achieve things with their lives. If you look even on my Facebook, I've been writing quotes from Napoleon Hill for years. And this book, I wanted to show that if I can do it, somebody started out at 12 years old with absolutely nothing, with no advantages, with no education, that anybody could do it too. So, and even if you fail, or if you come back, or if you have any of these excuses I wrote in the book, that anybody can do it. And I wanted to give back. This book is not written for me to tell anybody about my life story. I live an extraordinary life. I enjoy my life. I'm very confident. But sharing this book, sharing my life, that's why it's a journey. I put the ups and downs so you can learn from the ups and downs, not only from the ups. And I give you so many principles because I want people to really, achieve things, and have people having successes is the best reward for me. I mean, I can succeed, but it's time to give back. And that's one of the things Napoleon Hill also did with Think and Grow Rich. He wanted to give back to people, and that's why he wrote back. And then Napoleon Hill Foundation does the same thing. They give a lot. They raise a lot of money for universities. They put people through school. So the whole thing about being successful is you have to give back at the end of the day, or you've done this for nothing. So that's why I wrote the book, is to really give everybody the keys in my experience of 48 years, to give them a chance to succeed in life and not live the life that they hate.
Well, I can tell you in my 20-year career in radio, I've met some pretty incredible people, but I'm not sure that I've met anybody as inspirational as you. And I can tell you right now, after reading this book, after spending a little time with you, there's no question that I am extremely inspired, and I just feel very lucky that I've met you. And you all should feel lucky as well that you have an opportunity to buy this book. Check out the website, canyoureallythinkandgrowrich.com. You can buy the book on there, you register, and then you have an opportunity to win a trip with Ramy on his own private jet and have a conversation with him and be inspired. But I think step number one is buying this book and reading this book and reading it over and over again. One time is not enough. I've already read it a few times myself. It really is incredible. Ramy, I really want to thank you for joining the Mile High Club podcast. Thank you so much for being here. It really has been a pleasure. Thank you.